So in this video we are going to take a look at the remaining consonants, and we are going to start with ku. So the thing is, there are not very many words that begin with ku, and its pronunciation is very similar to that of ka, which we saw in the previous video. And mostly the words that begin with ku, there is always like a combination of ku and u. It's a q and u. There are of course a few words even in German that are international words that might be ku and e, but they are very rare, and most German words will be ku, u, and the pronunciation would be like kv. So you have to say almost like ka and ve, that sound. Take a look at this word. So the pronunciation would be Qualität. It will not be Qualität. That's a danger if you know English or if you know Marathi, Hindi, that you'll tend to pronounce it like that. You have to say it literally Kva, Qualität, or Quantität, or here Quelle, or here finally Quälen. So remember, k, that's a sound associated with ku, and mostly it will be ku, u, and the pronunciation would be kv. So our next consonant is r. Now this is for some reason a problematic consonant, because the way the Germans pronounce the r is very different and difficult for most of us to pronounce. The r in German is pronounced from here, r. Like for example, if you're gargling, then try it literally. Take some warm water and little try and gargle. You'll see that most of the times the voice will come, the sound will come from here, and that's the place from where even for simple words they'll produce this r sound, the sound from here. For example, in this word, which is rennen, they will try to pronounce it as rennen. Now it's very difficult even for me to pronounce it, and so my advice to you all is, it doesn't matter. You can roll your r's, you can call it a simple r as we have it in Hindi, Marathi, English. It really doesn't matter. And by, if you're able to produce this sound from here without too much pain in your throat, do that. But getting the r exactly right is not so critical. Like, don't major in minor things. Because even in Germany there are many dialects, and in some dialects people literally roll the r. That means they produce it in the front of the mouth, rennen, like that. So it is okay. There are many other things that you can do easily and that you must focus on, rather than trying very hard to produce the r sound from here. So I'll simply read out a few words, repeat after me. If you can get the r sound from the back of your throat, no problem, great, but otherwise don't fret about it. Let's take a look at the words. The first one would be rennen. The second is radio, a simple radio. The third is runter. Once again, runter. Now, a more important thing to remember when you're talking about r is when it comes together with vowels, especially when it comes after the vowels, and then the pronunciation of the vowels changes a little bit. So for example, if you have r, this just makes the r sound longer. Okay, so for example, in this word the pronunciation would be Arbeit, the R sound becomes long. Or in this word, it is armut. So whenever you see R, just make it slightly long. Don't pronounce the R. Don't say Arbeit or Armut. No, just simply Arbeit. Even in the verb, it would be arbeiten or Armut or Arm, meine Arme. Okay. What is it? Next we'll see when R comes after the vowel A. Now here we should not pronounce it as R, rather the pronunciation would be A. The R is again not pronounced. This is also because when the Germans pronounce it, they will try to get the R sound from here, and automatically you will feel a dip in the sound, like A, like that. For us, we can simply call it A and get the exact result, which makes it very simple. So never call it R, always call it A. Like in these examples, we should say erklären. So it's not erklären, it's erklären. Erklären. Or here, it would be erzählen. It's not simply erzählen, erzählen. Or in the article, it will be der and not der. It's der. Or in the question, it would be wer, not wer. Wer ist das? Nee, wer ist das? That will give your pronunciation that slight German edge, which is so difficult to get otherwise. Remember, we have seen air. If some consonant comes before it, like in this prefix, the VAR, the pronunciation remains exactly the same, just at the sound of that consonant before it. So here it becomes fair. So this word should be verstehen. It should not be verstehen, but verstehen or verkaufen. Verkaufen. Even if it is short, make it verkaufen. Or here it would be vermieten. Vermieten. Don't say it vermieten, vermieten. Let's take a look now at ER, and just as with AR, this becomes ear. All of you know the personal pronouns mir. You don't say mir, you say mir. Similarly, you don't say dir, you say dir. Or you don't say wir. Wir lernen Deutsch, no. Wir lernen Deutsch. Wir. So that's the same principle applied to all vowels followed by an R. You have to give it a nice rounding ear sound after that. And same would be the case if you have an H in the middle. So we'll have ear. Or in the case of slightly longish words, we'll have it as Wirbel and not Wirbel. Wirbel. Continuing with the same logic, we now have O and R, and again the pronunciation is going to be O and not or. So this word becomes Tor. Yeah, not Tor, Brandenburger Tor, no. Tor. It's a simply O, Tor. Or even in this prefix, it is vorbereiten, and not vorbereiten, no, vorbereiten. Lastly, we have the U together with the R, and same way it is pronounced as Ur. So the word would be uralt or Ursache. Similar to the Ur, where an H comes, the pronunciation is Ur. Even without the H, it is Ur. So let's have a few more examples. It would be Burg, or it would be Tour, as in Temperatur. Not Temperatur, but Temperatur. So that's it about the consonant sound R. Remember, original German, it is from here. You don't really need to fret about it. If you can easily get there, no problem. Otherwise, don't stress too much upon it, and pay attention to the vowel sounds together with the R. So now we'll take a look at the consonant S. This is one of the few consonant sounds that can be confusing because it is different in English and German. So normally S produces the S sound as in English, no problems at all. The problem is when a word begins with an S, and mostly it will be followed with a vowel sound, in which case it is not pronounced as S, rather Z. For example, the simplest word Sie, that's the very first word that you come to know in V heißen Sie, and it's not C, it is Z. Now how do we get this Z sound? It is not like the Marathi Z or even the English Z, J. No, it is maybe in Urdu we have a sound like that, and I'll tell you a very simple trick to do that. Again, use your hand or a couple of your fingers and put them on your throat and simply say S, like a snake. S. Do you feel any vibration? If you're doing it right, you should not. Now try to produce a sound such that you will get a vibration while producing the same sound. Zzz. It's a sound that you make when you are trying to imitate the sound of a bee, the humming bee, no? Zzz. It's that sound. Zzz. So if you whisper the Z, you'll get S. So that's the thing. That's what happens when we add a vowel after S. We get a voice to it, and that's why the pronunciation becomes Z. So it's Z. Let's take a look at a few examples. Here we have Zand. It will not be Sa, but it will be Za. Zand. Z. Zand. Then the next one we have Segen. Repeat after me. Segen. Or here it would be Zin. Not Sin, rather Zin. Then we have Sommer. Z. Sommer. After that, Zummer. Once again, Zummer. Or we have Zeus. Z. Zeus. Even if it comes between words and if it's the beginning of a new syllable, we are going to take a look at syllables later. Remember this rule. For example, in this word, it becomes absagen, not absagen, absagen. But if S comes at the end of a word without any vowel after it, then it retains its S sound. As in this particular word, it is Bus. Or this is a good example. We'll have Zex. It starts with an SA, so we get the Z sound, and at the end it is the S, so that's the S sound. So once again it becomes Zex. This brings us to the next consonant, which is V. As its name suggests, the sound is going to be F. It's very similar to the F sound. So in German, in order to get the F sound, you can either use an F or a V, but again it is not interchangeable. The words are fixed, so you need to know the spellings of it. So let's take a look at a few examples. Like in this word, it's going to be Vater. Okay, not va but fa, Vater. Or here, verheiratet. Or here, viel, voll, or vor. Now, sometimes we'll have words that begin with a vowel, but the pronunciation is not a f, rather like in English it's a v. Why does this happen? It's because in most of those cases, those words are international words, and that's why they retain their pronunciation. The commonest of these words you probably have already seen. Let's take a look at a few examples here. For example, this one. It's a verb. It begins with a vowel, but we don't say verb, we say verb. But remember, you have to bite your lips when you get the v sound. As in English, for a v, you would do that, bite your lips, say verb. The only thing you have to take care of is that it's AR, no? V-A-R, B. So the AR is air, verb, and it ends with a B, so the pronunciation should be a soft P. Once again, verb. Or this one, which is valence. Okay, you might have heard it, the two words actually come together when you're learning grammar, and we call them as verb valence. Valence. Okay, once again, say after me, valence. Or in this one, as in English, it's vitamin. The vitamin. Sometimes in English you might have cases where you call them vitamins, but in German that I is not available. You have to say V. Vitamin, and the mean is long, so say vitamin. Okay, going on to the next one. Many examples where it begins with a vowel but we don't actually pronounce it as f. I'll just go through the list. It's vocal, which means the vowels, vocable, the words. This is also from the science. Vacuum. It's actually one word where the u comes twice and you have to pronounce each one separately. It's vacuum. We saw it when we did the vowels. When two vowels, the same vowel comes twice, it's called it's one of the diphthongs, and you have to pronounce, you have to elongate it. In this case, it almost becomes like a break in between. So repeat after me. Vacuum. Vacuum. Okay, and one more, very common, many of you would need it. It's visum. There is one name that is quite common in German. This one, the pronunciation is going to be Vera and not Fera, because it's not originally a German name. Now when we are doing the pronunciation of V, something that's very important is that V comes with EV at the end of a word. For example, all these four friends of ours: nominative, dative, accusative, genitive, etc. Let's take them one by one. The first one of them is nominative. Remember, you have to pronounce it as thief and not tiu or tu. It's not nominative. No, it's nominative. Similarly, this one is not accusative. You say, I don't understand accusative. No, there is nothing to understand in accusative, because accusative doesn't exist. You have to say accusative, and it sounds also nice. Then you say, ich verstehe den Akkusativ nicht. But it sounds good. The third one would be dativ. Once again, dativ. And it will be genitive. genitive. So remember, pronounce it this way. It's not just for these 4 words. For many other words, let's take this example, which is also very common to English. We say inclusive, or the opposite of it, which would be exclusive. Yeah, so whenever you see EF at the end, remember it should be if. So that's about it as far as FAU is concerned. Let's go on to the next consonant. So the next consonant is W. Once again, remember that in German you have to pronounce it by biting your lower lip, V. In English, there is a nice one-liner that people learn for remembering how the pronunciation of V and W is. They say, bite your V's and kiss your W's. So that all the English words with W are pronounced with rounded lips. Like what would you do? Whereas the words with V, like verb, etc., are you get the sound by biting the lower lip. In German, you bite everything. V. So even for like the letter itself is V, you have to say V by biting the lower lip, and all the words that you have with this particular consonant will be V. A few examples would be was. These are all our W-Fragen. So just practice with any W-Frage, any W-Wort. Let's take a look at these words quickly. Was, Wasser, wie. If you focus closely, you will hear a little bit of like vibration in, when you're pronouncing that word. No? You have to actually say that. This one would be warum or wunderbar. That's it. Let's hop on to the next. We are going to skip X simply because its pronunciation is nothing to speak of. It's very similar to that of English, and so we will quickly hop on to the next one, which is Ypsilon. This can be a problem. First of all, it is called Ypsilon. It's a lovely name for a letter, I think. Its pronunciation is U. It's very similar to the U umlaut. Like this word would be typisch and not typisch. Coming from English, we'll tend to call it tip, but it's typisch. Repeat after me, typisch. Remember how you pronounce the t sound, the nice tinkling sound when the tongue just touches the bridge between the hard and soft palates. Typisch, typisch. Or this one would be System and not System. Although sometimes you might hear some people will say System. Maybe even in Germany there might be some variants of it, because as you see, this word is not originally German, so you might hear System. But if you're learn the U pronunciation of Ypsilon and call it System. System. Okay. The next one would be a nice one, Hypothese. Here, because of our English, we might tend to pronounce it as hypo, hypothese, or hippo. No, it's hypothese. P is also pronounced as, like when we have to exhale, so we say hypothese, and the th is just like T, so hypothese. Or this one, the country would be Egyptian. Egyptian. One last word for Ypsilon. I love this word. We pronounce it as lyric. You will tend to pronounce it as lyric because of English, but remember it should be lyric. Good. Let's hop on to the last consonant, the Z. I don't think any other consonant gives the students and the teachers so much of a problem than this. bugger. Its pronunciation is ts. Remember, the letter is z. If you speak Devanagari, if you speak Hindi Marathi, and if you know how to write in the Devanagari script, it is going to be written as half of the followed by a s sound, or in English it will be a ts. So you have to resist all the instinctive temptation to look at this letter and call it a z, and that's a big hurdle to cross. But pay attention and you'll be able to cross it. So don't say zoo when it is zu, no? Zu Hause, and not zu Hause, exactly opposite. So say after me, it will be zu Hause, zu Hause. So this one is going to be Zoo and not zoo. So we saw it in the vowel part. Doppel O is O. It's just a long O, and not, it doesn't become U as in English. So that is one thing to remember. And of course the ts sound, so, or the number zwei. It is not zwei. It is ts, zwei. It's a nice sharp sound. The number is going to be 10. Remember, the vowel A followed by an H is long, so the pronunciation becomes 10. Or this is Zauber. That means magic. And this word, you have to be careful not to mix it with the other word, which is Zauber, and students will instinctively interchange the two, which should not be the case. So repeat after me here. It will be Zauber, or this one would be Zucker. If you say Zucker, it's not as sweet. You should call it Zucker. And I don't know whether it's the last. I have two, that's why it's the second last. It would be die Zeit. No, not Zeit, because there is another word that's Zeit. You know that's a preposition which means since. So if you mix these words, you can imagine how confusing it can get to somebody who's listening. So that's why I pronounce it nice and proper, Zeit. And coming from the same word, we have Zeitung and not Zeitung. Zeitung. I'll see you in the next video, where we are going to take a look at the combinations of consonants. See you then.